Shalom. All praises to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of GMS who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Ainal. The title of this video is The Dollar and False Prophets Will Fall. Right. And basically, these false prophets, they teach for hire, and we're at the end of the end of Esau's kingdom, right? And along with that comes the fall of the dollar, right? And the issuing of the MOTB, the new money system. So a lot of these false prophets are teaching for hire, So once this dollar collapses, pretty much the lambs, the sheep, whatever, they won't have a shepherd, right? The shepherds that are teaching them are gonna just give up, because they're not doing it through the power of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. They're doing it through the power of Esau, Edom, and his dollar.
But we haven't really had a weak dollar. We're back below where we were when Trump was elected. So all of the Trump dollar gains have been eradicated, but we haven't really had a weak dollar. If the Fed starts cutting, or when the Fed starts cutting and going back to QE, the dollar is going to get killed. And that is an environment where gold's going to shine much brighter. See, the gold's been strong even when the dollar has.
And even that in itself, I'll got a precept on it, because right now you have who is shining, or I guess the people think is shining with these camps that have, I got all the precepts here about it, that have the gain, that has the glitz, the glamour, right, and all of that. That's the dollar, right? The real gold is the hopeful elect, the men of the Lord. I believe it's actually one in Isaiah. Yeah, and the gold is us, the hopeful elect, the true men of the Lord, the prophets, right? Let me grab it. All right, Slocky, bear with me. Let me grab this over here. All right, it was Isaiah 13, actually. Isaiah 13 and 12, I'll grab a few, because that was a point. And I just thought about that when he was saying that, because So anyway, Isaiah 13 and 12, it says, I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Right. And what's the point of that? Basically shining as gold, and the golden wedge of Ophir is a rare type of gold. So get a precept to that is Isaiah 32. So we're going to shine like gold. We're being refined to shine like gold, because right now that's what we're doing. We're going through the tribulations, right? We're fed up with the world. We're not happy. We're not making any money or anything like that. Isaiah 32 and 1, it says, behold, a king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall rule in judgment, says the glorious future. It says, and a man shall be as a hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. So that's what's making us that gold, right? That man is going to be, salvation to many. That's what it's going into. Let me grab this. Some other ones. A few of them. First Peter. First Peter 1 and 7, it says that the trial of your faith, being much more precious than of gold that perisheth, though it be tried with fire, might be found unto praise and honor and glory at the appearing of Yahweh Shai. Right. So, what we're going through is making us, pure, turning us into gold. Revelations 3 and 18, it says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. Right. So that's us, the hopeful elect, Lord willing, in this time now being refined as gold, and being made to shine, So that's a great point there, with the guy related to that the dollar will fall. and then the gold, will start booming. Let's wind it back a little bit.
And that is an environment where gold's going to shine much brighter. See, the gold's been strong, and going back to QE, the dollar's going to get killed. And that is an environment where gold's going to shine much brighter. See, the gold's been strong even when the dollar has been relatively strong on foreign exchange markets. But when the dollar gets weak, which it is going to do, I'm convinced that we're going to see a much weaker dollar, then that is going to be very bullish for gold. We're back below.
All right, another video here.
Members of Donald Trump's economic team are pushing for a total reorganization of the international financial system. The so-called Mar-a-Lago Accord, named after the president's resort in Florida, aims to tilt the international economy in favor of the United States. As part of the scheme, the White House would reclassify trading partners into friends and enemies and deliberately devalue the US dollar.
Yeah, and I'll get more of this video towards the end, So, that's the point. Again, Micah, the point is that these individuals teach for hire and the dollar is on the way out, and so are they. Micah 3:1, it said, and I said, and I'm gonna read this whole thing. And I said, here I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and you princes of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know judgment, who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off them, and their flesh from off their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people, and flay their skin from off them, and they break their bones and chop them in pieces, as for the pot and as for flesh within the cauldron. Then shall they cry unto the Lord Yahweh. So what is this going into? Basically, the people, the rulers, the false prophets using the people, not leading them correctly. It says, then shall they cry unto the Lord Yahweh, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, as they have behaved themselves in ill in their doings. It says, thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning the prophets that make my people err, that bite with their teeth and cry peace, and he that putteth not into their mouths, they even prepare war against him. Right, and that's going into what? That Isaiah 28. These individuals have made a covenant with death, and it will be disannulled. You got these 501(c) churches, let me see, is it right? Isaiah 28:14, it says, wherefore hear the word of the Lord Yahweh, ye scornful men that rule this people which is in Jerusalem. So now you have these false prophets ruling, it says, because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us, for we have made lies our refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. Therefore thus saith Lord Yahweh, behold, I will lay in Zion for a foundation stone, a tri-stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believeth shall not make haste. Right, and that is Yahushua, right? We believe on Yahushua. We call on the names of Yahweh and Yahushua. But these individuals have put their trust in Esau Edom, right? So that's how they're preparing war against the people and against Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. It says, therefore, night shall be unto you, that ye shall not have a vision, and it shall be dark unto you, that ye shall not divine. And the sun shall go down over the prophets, and the day shall be dark over them. Then shall the seers, which are also the prophets, be ashamed, and the diviners confounded. Yea, they shall all cover their lips, for there is no answer of Yahweh. It says, so this is what it says, rulers denounce. So this is going to the false prophets that are denounced. And then Micah here is gonna, he's talking here. It says, so that day is gonna come basically where, they're gonna give up. They're gonna, they're gonna see the wolf coming and scatter, which I got those precepts here. They're gonna see the wolf, that being Esau Edom, coming in ready to devour, and they're gonna flee. All right. Micah 3:9, it says, hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob, and princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment and pervert all let me see what this word here.
Equity.
The quality of being fair, right? and impartial. See what it says right here. Straight, upright, correct, right, straight, level, right, pleasing, correct, that which is upright, right, equity. Okay. Pervert all equity. It says, they build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. The heads thereof judge for reward. And that's the point. This is the whole point of this whole lesson. This is prophesying, to these false prophets that they're going to be destroyed. And they teach for this. And it's a warning to the people that your teachers are going to flee and they're going to come to the prophets, and it's going to be too late. It says the heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, "Is not the Lord Yahweh among us? None evil can come upon us." Right, and this is what these individuals say. These false prophets, right? You have all of them. All of these false camps, right? It says, "Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountains of the house of and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest." So when Esau Edom comes, he's gonna devour these individuals that are joined to these camps with leaders that are false prophets. They're gonna be easily run down because the scriptures say wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. And this is something that they're lacking because their false teachers are not giving them the correct warning or the correct messages. John 10:10 says, the thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly, right? And that goes into what? That cornerstone, which you read. Oh, it was over here. So, that cornerstone is Yahweh Shai. Says, I am the good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming and leaveth the sheep and fleeth. And the wolf catches them and scattereth the sheep. So that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to be mixed up in all type of, idol activities, because their teachers are going to see the wolf coming and flee. And then, they're going to go in the line for the MOTB and whatever else that Esau has planned for them, right? Killings, It says the hireling fleeth because he is an hireling and careth not for the sheep. It says, I am the good shepherd and know my sheep and am known of mine, right? And that's how we can boldly proclaim and call on the names of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? With no problem, unlike these false 501(c) camps that, teach for hire. Oh, did I can grab it real quick? Isaiah 56:10, it says, his watchmen are blind, they are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, laying down, loving to slumber. Right. And these are these camps, coming out saying we have 1,000 years or we have 30 years, left here in this wicked ass world. It says, yeah, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his gain from his quarters. So they're in this thing for gain, right? For their own gain, right? And that's the dollar, right? And they're using the people to get that money, right? The Booster Club, where they got the links, they got QR codes, whatever QR codes on a screen. You can pull up your phone and donate, give money. They charge them for counseling. It says, come ye, say they, I will fetch wine and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as this day and much more abundant. So they're basically in a slumbering, sleeping, partying state, and they continue this thing every day over and over and over again. That's what it's talking about here. Titus 1:10, it says, for there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision. So this is going to what? People that know they're Israelites, right? It says, whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for a filthy lucre's sake. And that's for money. They're doing it for money. And the money is about to be done away with, right? And you won't have no shepherd. So I got 50 lucre right here. It says in the King James version of the Bible, 50 lucre refers to money, especially money that is obtained dishonestly and for selfish gain. And that's exactly what they do. Titus 1:11, whose mouth must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things they ought not, for 50 lucre's sake. One of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said that Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. So we're just going to, basically the falling away of these different people from these camps that come out and say, yo, these people are wicked, and even, some information has come out recently with a dude that got beat up by a member of, his group, and that group was IUIC. He went in to let us know the inner workings of how they do certain things, and it's all pretty much wicked, wicked as hell. It says one of themselves, even a prophet of their own, which this dude, the dude that did say what he said, we don't know if he's still doing the work or what he's doing, but the answer is probably not, because he's not getting fed over in that camp, they don't, which I got that precept too. The fruit, they're not bearing for fruit. It says one of themselves, IUIC is a revolving door. Basically, people go in there, they play around, and then they leave and they go back to the world, It says one of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said, the Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. This witness is true. Wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth. Unto the pure, all things are pure, but unto them that are defiled and unbelieving is nothing pure. But even their mind and conscience is defiled. They profess that they know Yahweh, but in works they deny him, being abominable and disobedient, and unto every good work reprobate. Right? Ezekiel 34:1 says, in the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel, prophesy and say unto them, thus saith the Lord Yahweh unto the shepherds, woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves. Should not the shepherds feed the flocks? It says, ye eat the fat, and ye clothe you with the wool. Ye kill them that are fed, but ye feed not the flock. Right. And then it says, the disease have ye not strengthened, neither have ye healed that which was sick, neither have ye bound up that which was broken, neither have ye brought again that which was driven away, neither have ye sought that which was lost, but with force and with cruelty have ye ruled them. Right, and that's exactly what these false camps are doing. Right, they're feeding themselves, trying to get all the money they can and keep it to themselves. NLT, Ezekiel 34:1. Then this message came to me from the Lord Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds, the leaders of Israel. Give them this message from the sovereign Lord Yahweh. What sorrow awaits you shepherds who feed yourselves instead of your flocks? Shouldn't shepherds feed their sheep? You drink the milk, wear the wool, and butcher the best animals, but ye let your flocks starve. You have not taken care of the weak. You have not tended the sick. You have not tended the sick or bound up the injured. Ye have not gone looking for those who have wandered away and are lost. Instead, ye have ruled them with harshness and cruelty. Right, and now grab this. It says, so my sheep have been scattered without a shepherd, and they are easy prey for any wild animal. And who was that wild animal? Esau, Edom. When he comes, right? They have, these false prophets are not actually teaching their camp to know anything. Their whole mindset is, Yahushua is 1,000 years away, 30 years away, wherever the case may be, 1 Peter 5:1, it says, the elders which are among you I exhort, who am also an elder, and a witness of the sufferings of Yahushua, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. It says, feed the flock of Yahweh, which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. It says, neither as being lords over Yahweh's heritage, but being examples to the flock. Right, and the only example that these other camps has put out there is that you should make as much money as you can, and that's true. Even when I was coming up in the truth, going way back to, not way back, but around 2017, a dude, was trying to teach me, and through the spirit now I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to set up his own type of camp and basically feed off of us, the individuals that he, basically joined to himself for money. And during that time, I wasn't doing so good or whatever the case may be. So, and I was always a person that was, doing good, and I could say, hey, here you go, not so. But it was a dude that was also, you know, around us, that this dude that was trying to set up his own camp was taking a lot of money from, and the dude that he was taking the money from ended up not, believing anymore, not following anymore, and that was the main reason, because he was like, yo, this dude took all his money from me. He said he's gonna pay me back, and he never did. So and he was claiming to be of IUIC, though I never seen him wear the purple and gold, or never seen this man report into no IUIC or anything like that, right? He was just always around asking for money, but I got the names, and whatnot. Here I am. So anyway, so that, that's the example that they set, as in, hey, you can do this too. You can set up camps, and you can leech off your people and take money from them, and you'll be good. And then who cares about them, as long as you're good, right? Because obviously that's what the guy did. That's why one of the men said, I don't believe the truth anymore. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. Moving on. 2 Peter 2:1. It says, but there were false prophets among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privately shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord Yahweh that brought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. Right? It says, and through covetousness shall they with French words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now for a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. See, that's one of the people I just spoke about too. That dude he's still around. He's a false prophet. If he's still trying to do the same things that he was doing, and actually I did run into him. I want to say recently, but after we fell off from that thing, because obviously that was going nowhere. That group that he set up, it was going nowhere. So after that ended, eventually down the line, I ran back into him, and I had mentioned the fact that dude fell out the truth, and that you should probably go say something to him, because when I ran back into the dude, he was trying to come all humbly and crouching, saying, oh man, I should have did this, I should have did that, whatever the case may be. I said, well, yeah, there's a dude still out here that you need to go talk to or pay him back or something. And he basically said, he, don't give his number out to that guy or whatever. He don't want to talk to him. So that's one of those false prophets too. Just like there's a false prophet, IUIC, that where's all the camps, making merchandise of the people. All right, this is 6 and 5. 1 and 6 and 5. I just get it from the top. This 1 Timothy 6 verse 1. It says, let as many Salakia, bear with me. 1 Timothy 6 and 1, Salakia. It says, let as many servants as are under the yoke count their own masters worthy of all honor, that the name of Yahweh and his doctrine be not blasphemed. And they that have believing masters, let them not despise them because they are brethren, but rather do them service because they are faithful and beloved, partakers of the benefit. These things teach and exhort. It says, if any man teach otherwise and consent not to wholesome words, even the words of our Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, into the doctrine which is according to godliness, he is proud, knowing nothing, but doting about questions and scribes of words, whereof cometh envy, strife, railings, evil. What is this? Let me see what this is about. Summary. Surmissings. It says surmissings refers to the act of to guess or conjecture something without sufficient evidence. All right. Right. So he is proud, knowing nothing, but doting about questions and strife of words, whereof cometh envy, strife, railings, and evil submersings, perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds, and destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. From such withdraw thyself. So basically, it's going to the fact that if anyone is teaching against the doctrine, then this is what these things bring. And then, of course, it goes into what? Supposing that gain is godliness. So let me grab this NLT because that's, what these false camps do. It says, 1 Timothy 6:1, all slaves should show full respect for their masters so they will not bring shame on the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and his teachings, right? And, we had individuals that, in the history that would sell themselves, to masters or whatnot. You can think about, who was it? Jacob, right? Jacob wanted Rachel, and he ended up getting Rachel and Leah, but he had to work 7 years, and that would be his master, It says 1 Timothy 6:1, all slaves should show full respect for their masters, so they will not bring shame on the name of Yahweh and his teachings. If the masters are believers, that is no excuse for being disrespectful. Those slaves should work all the harder because their efforts are helping other believers who are well loved. Teach these things, Timothy, and encourage everyone to obey them. Some people may contradict our teaching, but these are the wholesome teachings of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. These teachings promote a godly life. Anyone who teaches something different is arrogant and lack understanding. Such a person has an unhealthy desire to quibble over the meaning of words. This stirs up arguments ending in jealousy, division, slander, and evil suspicions. It says these people always cause trouble. Their minds are corrupt, and they have turned their backs on the truth. To them, a show of godliness is just a way to become wealthy. And who does that fit? These individuals that are doing these things, right? And it's clear as day who's doing it, right? To those of us that have, that can see. It says, yet true godliness with contentment is itself great wealth, right? So just trusting in the word, believing on Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, right? All right, we got a tree in its fruits. Matthew 7:15, it says, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit, right? And that's what I spoke on earlier about that one God. And there's so many others that, go to the camp and then leave the camp, and then you got a video on YouTube why I'm no longer an Hebrew Israelite, or why you should, stay away from the Hebrew Israelites. That's because, like the account I brought up with the dude I know that got used, or whatnot, and he was done with it, whatever the case may be. So it says, even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits you shall know them. That's the point, So we know that these false camps ain't really doing nothing too good, right? Because we can clearly see and relate to the scriptures and say, well, they're making merchandise of the people. They're teaching for hire, right? They have made covenants with that. They fit all the scriptures of that. And pretty soon, just like the scripture here that I'm about to get into, these people, the leaders are going to flee, and then they're going to want some type of learning. The people that have been listening to these false prophets are going to want some type of information or learning, and it's going to be too late. This is Matthew 25:1. It says, then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. Yeah. It says, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him, right? So we're all waiting on Yahweh Shai, and what are we doing, right? We're rehearsing the righteous acts. We're getting this knowledge and this information inside of us, right? It says, then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, give us of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us in you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. So we're going to send you right back to the same people that have been using you, making merchandise of you, and all of that. And that's where you're going to and they won't be there because there won't be no money anyway, right? It says, and while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Right? And Lord willing, this video has been edifying to you. And I'll play a little bit more of this, because the dollar will collapse, and so will these false prophets.
This is Mar-a-Lago, the Florida resort where Donald Trump spends many weekends, often with high-profile guests and senior administration officials, now lending its name to a bold and potentially destabilizing economic plan. The plan aims to devalue the US dollar, a symbol of American financial might. But, according to Donald Trump's economic team, the dollar is too strong. Too many countries want to hold dollars in reserve, and that, according to the White House team, creates a lot of problems. A strong dollar makes imports cheaper for US customers, and makes US exports more expensive. The White House sees that as hurting US manufacturing, hollowing out the working class, and making the country more dependent on others, rather than making things at home in the USA. Then there's the US national debt, well over $30 trillion. The annual interest payments are more than the military budget. China and other countries sell a lot more goods in the US than they import. Then they invest in US debt, driving up the dollar even more. So how do Trump's economists want to fix this? With what's being called the Mar-a-Lago Accord. A framework's been suggested by Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and the head of Trump's Economic Advisory Council. The idea is to convince other countries to help weaken the dollar and to trade in their US debt holdings for 100-year bonds. The US would pay way less interest on its debt. This isn't something most countries would see as being in their self-interest. So how do you convince other countries to act against their financial interests? Bessent has suggested dividing countries into 3 categories: green for friendly nations, red for unfriendly ones, and yellow for those in the middle.
At the Atlantic Council's Geoeconomic Center, she recently wrote an article about this issue for the Atlantic Council called Meeting in Mar-a-Lago, Is a New Currency Deal Plausible? Welcome to DW. So should we be viewing the Trump administration's changed military priorities and widespread use of tariffs through the lens of this Mar-a-Lago Accord? Is this the Trump administration getting its ducks in a row?
That's certainly one way to look at it, and it's really a debate in DC right now about whether these tactics will be feasible in trying to get a weaker US dollar. So the Mar-a-Lago Accord is also a play on the Plaza Accord from 1985, where West Germany, France, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the US came together to intentionally devalue the US dollar.
And how did that work out?
So these countries did come to a currency agreement to devalue the US dollar, especially against the Japanese yen. Something that we at the Geoeconomic Center kind of identified in our article is that the countries that signed onto this agreement and that held these large trade deficits with the US have very different incentives in 1985 than.
Right. So, and I looked this up. Collapse of the dollar. She was there. I think I looked at it one time before. We get a little bit of this.
Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are going to dive into what arguably might be the greatest threat of our lifetime, the collapse of the dollar. Now, I'll admit, 3 years ago, if you had asked me about the collapse of the dollar, I might have said, not in my lifetime. But thankfully, emergency preparedness led me to precious metals, which led me to financial preparedness, where I discovered.
Another thing too, these dudes keep talking about what's the end of the, when do you think the end of the world is going to come? But they never explain why. One guy said 1,000 years, one guy said 30 years. But it's like, okay, so why is that? I don't know. But anyway, hey, Lord willing, the video has been edifying to you. I say shalom to the hopeful elect, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom. Oh, and by the way, whatever. We know it's not the case. Actually, just did a video yesterday going to the fact that, we don't have long, right? It's not long. So it's nowhere near 30 years or 1,000 years or anything like that. Shalom.